I start, I'm going to record. So up until last week, I covered all the way until here. Now we're doing 6B. Okay. So, wait, I don't know why it's not loading. Okay, perfect, 6B. All right. So before I go on, Ricky Ma, not Raymond. Okay. Before I go on, I just want to recover what I did last time. So the last thing we stopped on was a puzzle like this. And this puzzle was, if you look at it the right way, it's a very, very easy puzzle. Why is it an easy puzzle? Because if you just notice here that he's about to checkmate you here, and he's also about to checkmate you here, you realize that there's really no way to stop this checkmate. So if I bring my queen back here, it stops this checkmate, but he can still check me on a2, and then it's mate. There's no way to stop both of these checkmates. Actually, this checkmate by itself is almost impossible. The only way I can prolong it is if I do this. And what will he do if I do this? Like, he can't come to a2 anymore because I'll take it. But what will he do if I bring this up? What do you guys think?
Maybe he'll eat.
He'll what, sorry?
Maybe he'll get distracted and eat.
Yeah, he might get distracted and eat. You're right. Or most likely, if he's a good player, he'll just checkmate you right away. And even if he does eat, you're still in the same problem as before. You still have to worry about, how do I stop this? The only way to stop this checkmate again is to take this. And you either lose a queen or, yeah. So if you know that he can checkmate you no matter what, the thing that you have to realize next is that means that since it's my turn, I have to make a move that gives him check. Because otherwise, if I make any other move like this, he'll just checkmate me, right? Any other move, he'll checkmate me. So I have to give him check. So how do I give him check? What's the only way here to give him check?
Rook h8.
Yeah, h8, no, not that. h8, yes. He takes, and then I just have to keep giving him check. So the only other check here is h1. He moves, and then there's actually two checks here. There's the h8 one and the h7 one. But if you go to h8, he'll just take your queen for no reason. So you can go to h7. So now he can't take your queen. And there's technically, once again, two checks, but three checks actually, if you want to be technical. But the two of them he'll just take. So you just go with the obvious check. And now there's, once again, only one good check, because what's the problem with, for example, this check? He'll just, yeah. So there's only one good check. And then he goes, and then this is checkmate. And if he blocks, you can just take it, and then it'll be checkmate. So that was where we left off last week. So some puzzles, you don't even need to think it through at all. You just realize that if there's any way I can get out of this, it has to be with a check. So you do it anyways. And then you just keep with that same logic. So check, 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 and then you just keep on going. It looks complicated when you go through all those moves, but every single one of them is forced from your end. Going on, this is a different situation. So he's not about to checkmate you, but you have 1, 2, 3 attackers that can come in and attack him. And he has one defender that can stop the attacks. And if the difference between the number of attackers you have and the number of defenders he has is 2 or more, so if you have 2 more attackers than he does defenders, then it's a pretty good idea to attack him, in most cases at least. Of course, you should still think it through, but here we can go ahead and attack him. So if I throw in a check, he'll take, and then I can bring my queen in, and now I'm threatening checkmate on this square, and there's no way he can get out of it. So just mate. Great. And this one we also covered, but once again, you have 1, 2, 3 attackers, so it's a good thing to go in. He runs away, so there's no way you can checkmate him now like you could before, because if I go to h8, if I go to h8, and then I come here, this isn't a checkmate because, well, he'll bring his bishop up and now his king can escape. Before it was a checkmate because he couldn't go to the left because there's a rook here. But now if I check him here, he can leave. What's probably better in this situation is to attack here. And then once you take the bishop, you can come in this way. And then, yeah. But that's no immediate checkmate or anything like that. Okay. Moving on. This is the last one. And then we can go on to the next study. So here, where is his king? His king is on the right side, right? Well, where are our pieces? We have one piece here. And he has no defenders. We have one attacker and he has no defenders. You need the difference between the number of attackers and defenders. You need to have 2 more attackers than he does defenders. If he has 0 defenders and you have 1 attacker, you need 1 more for that difference to be 2. So how do we bring in another attacker towards the king side? What move should I do so I can bring in another attacker towards the king side? Because right now the king side only has 1 attacker, and that's not enough for a checkmate. We need at least 1 more. So let's bring in another attacker towards the king side. The rook can't do it. Knight
Queen
can't.
d3.
Yeah, queen d3. Good job. And now we're trying to attack here. So the queen takes here. But we're not worried. We can just check. And now here's a little bit more trickiness. If we check up here on h8, he will escape. And now he just escaped. And even if we check here, he can still keep running away. So if this happens, and now we have no more attack because we've run out. We've run out of attacks. So we don't actually want to check on h8. We need to do a check that won't let him come here, because if he comes here, he'll lose, or just won't let him come here. So does anyone have an idea on how to attack him and stop him from going here at the same time? We can't let him escape. You can just put it in the chats if you don't want to speak. But the only other check to the king is where?
Queen h6.
Yeah, queen h6 is the only other check. And can he escape to e7 here? Do you think?
No.
Well, why not? I mean, he just did, right? Why can't he?
Queen d6. Checkmate.
Yeah, queen e6 is checkmate if he comes there. So his only other choice is to come here, and what do we do then? In this,
Queen h8.
yeah, h8 is checkmate. So good job. So as long as you're a little careful here and you don't rush to h8, but you think it through, then h6 is checkmate in 2. Here, good job. Okay, next we can go to this one. Okay. Look, this is the right side of the board, and that's where his king is. Now, how many pieces can we bring into the right side of the board? Well, we have this bishop in. We have this knight that can also check on that square. And then we can have this queen that can come attack there. So that means we have 1, 2, 3 attackers that can do stuff. And he has 1 defender, which is this pawn that's getting in the way of that king and us. So we need to eventually take that pawn. Now the question is, what order do we bring the attackers in? Well, we can't bring the queen in first because the queen is being blocked by the knight. So to solve this, we either have to bring in the knight first or the bishop first. Okay. Which one do you think we should bring in first to start the attack? The bishop or knight?
Knight.
Okay, let's try the knight. If we bring the knight in, what do you think he will do to stop the double attack here? Do you think there's any move he can do to stop?
Maybe he will block it with his knight.
Yeah, he could block it with his knight or even with the pawn. So you see, now we don't have an attack on this. And even if we bring in our third attacker, then he will simply push. And now we no longer have any attack to continue. So he actually has the option to block. On the other hand, if you go in with the bishop right away, he can't block because he's in check. So he takes. Now we just need to bring in the knight and the queen in. So let's just see how that works. We can't do it with the queen right away. We can do this, but he can block it. So a better move would be just the knight. And if he goes back like this, what do you think we can do?
Queen h5.
Yeah, bring the queen in and then we can slowly start attacking. So I'll just, sorry, I went through that really fast, but yeah, queen h7 is the next move. So if he didn't bring his rook out, like for example, did this, then queen h7 would be checkmate. So the king actually moves the rook out. So now his king can escape. So queen h7, king runs away. We keep the check up. His only move is to block with the knight. Now we can check with our knight and he comes out. And now we can actually check with this bishop, which was hiding here all along. And here we have a couple of options from black. What would we do if black just moved out of the way?
Queen.
Yeah, we just get the free queen. Okay, his other option is he just moves up. What would we do now?
Queen g7.
Yeah, and why is queen g7 so great?
Checkmate.
It's checkmate, yeah. So as you see, it worked. The attack worked. If he goes back, there's another option, and that's if he comes up. In that case, we still have to bring this guy here, but we can actually choose what orders to bring it. So we can come up, and then he comes here. We can take the knight if we want. But what's actually recommended is just to move out the way like this. This is a discovered check.
Can you just eat the pawn and then there will be a double check and the bishop will check too?
Sure, let's try it. So if I eat the pawn, there'll be a double check and then he'll move out. And then after that, I can check him and then he'll run. And then I don't know, where else would I go after that? Maybe h8, but then he just takes my knight. So
maybe you could, right after that, you could eat the queen.
Yeah, I could eat the queen for sure. So that's a nice combo I have there to get the queen. But to take this pawn is actually even better than a queen. So let's just see why. When we check, he has two options. He either moves away or he pushes the pawn up. What do you think we do if he pushes the pawn up?
Queen g5.
Yeah, we can just take the pawn, and then once he moves here, we can actually just checkmate. On the other hand, if he doesn't push the pawn up and he moves away, then it's a checkmate right away. So the point of bringing the knight here is so that you can double attack on this pawn, and so he can't use the pawn as protection. But if you bring your knight here, he can start running around that pawn. So when I check, he starts running around. You see that pawn is protected.
You could use your knight and take the knight.
Yeah. We can take this knight. You're right. And there's a lot of things we can do.
No. At the beginning, if you go back.
Okay, let's go back
When
here.
you f7, knight take f7.
Oh, yeah?
And then the knight can just take it.
Yeah. You're right. The knight can't. Well, no, it's a double check, right?
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's why he even recommended it. But we want something to stop him from using this as a protector. So the knight here is the best move. Great. Is there any other variation that I need to worry about? I guess there's one if he goes here, but you can bring this guy in anyways. So you can't come here because he'll take it, but you can bring him in. And now you can just, so he did this move, you can just take it. And then check. And this is his only move. So where do you guys think we go after this? So we can take the rook after that, and then that's the best we're going to get. So this is the best variation for him. But even in this variation, we have a pretty good setup. So yeah. So this whole combination of using the knight, queen, and bishop, knight, and queen is called the Greek gift. You don't need to know the name necessarily, but it's a pretty good combination. And it usually occurs when he doesn't have enough defending pieces on the right side. To get the knight here and the bishop here is very common. I use it in almost every game. And for him to castle on the king side is also super common. The only problem is if he doesn't get enough defenders there fast enough, then you can just win like this super quickly. So here's another example of the Greek gift. So this time we have this guy as attacker, this guy as attacker, this guy as attacker. But we have a problem because if we bring our knight here, what can happen? What's bad about bringing the knight there?
The bishop can take.
Yeah, so technically he has an extra defender. So he has this as a defender and this is a defender. So we also need an extra attacker. So we have this as an attacker, this is an attacker, and this is an attacker. And actually, if the bishop takes, we're going to take back with this guy, and we'll have this guy attacking this way. So this is actually also an attacker. So he has these two defenders, and we have these four attackers. So is the difference between the number of attackers we have and the number of defenders he has the right amount?
Yes.
Yes, we have enough attackers to make this successful. So let's go for it. By the way, in games, before you actually go through with it, don't just count attackers and defenders. Actually think it through. But just for the sake of clarity, we can just start attacking. Here, check. So if he goes back, we just bring this guy in. And this is just a checkmate. If he takes, we take back, and look, we still have this checkmate, a threat. So there's no way he's getting out of it. Quick side note, he's gonna try and get out of it like this. So if I check him, he just runs away. So before I check him, I have to make sure he can't leave. How do I make sure he can't leave? How do I stop him from leaving?
I take the pawn.
I can take the pawn, but he can still come to this square if I come to h7. Is there any way to stop him from going to this square?
You can move the pawn just up.
Yeah, there you go. If I move this pawn to g6, there's no way he's leaving. So now it's just checkmate. There's nothing he can do here. Even if he moves the rook, so if I check him, he goes here. I don't need to check him here. I can check him here and it's checkmate. So the key is don't forget about this pawn move, because if you do this, or if you just don't do that and you just check him, boom, he's escaped, and now you have no attack. You sacrifice something for nothing. So just be concise. I did leave something out. He doesn't need to run away like that. He can run away many other ways. For example, if he takes here, in that case, we can just take back. And then if he goes back, once again, we have the same situation as before. If he comes here, we can actually just check him. And then this is checkmate. And this is the only other thing he can do. He can, actually, I guess technically there's two other things he can do. He can come here or here. So let's say he comes here. What do you think we do to respond to that?
You check using the pawn?
H5.
You can try checking using the pawn,
H.
but usually you just bring the queen in anyways. Sure, let's try. I want to actually just see what the computer says. If you can also do this, it's made in 7. I want to see if the pawn works. So it's not mate. He can actually get out of it if the pawn works. So yeah, you just do this and get the queen. If you do this, you can still get the queen in the same way, like this. I just want to see why. Let's try and figure out why this is made in 6. So he'll do this. And then we're going to take. And now he has a couple of options. He can come here, here, or take this. So let's just try one of the options. Let's go here. And it's checkmate, almost checkmate here. Checkmate in 2, maybe?
No, queen F3. I think it's checkmate.
So F3, did you say? No.
No, it's not.
Well, we can go down this route. So if you go F3, he moves, we can
You can check
check
with
him here.
pawn.
He goes here, we can try a double check. Or we could try,
I think the double check is good.
yeah, but he runs away and now we have no more checks. We can always take the queen, but we could have done that anyway.
We could do D3 again.
We could try this pawn up and then just to take that and bring the queen in. We could just do this. There's no need for a double check. But if he comes here, now he has no more threat. I guess this, but that's not it. Then what's the correct solution? Check, pawn up. I don't know. Yeah, I'll just ask the computer. I don't want to waste class time. Oh, you go pawn up, and then that threatens checkmate here. Interesting. Okay, sorry, this is off track. But if he comes here, this is also made in a few. Or I guess you just take the queen. Oh, it's made in 13. Yeah. So the Greek gift usually works as long as you know what you're doing, because he usually just doesn't have enough and you can just checkmate him. And if worst comes to worst and you can't figure out a way to checkmate him, you can always just find a way to get his queen. Like, for example, here, how would you get his queen? There's 2 ways technically. How would you get his queen in this position?
Knight E6.
Yeah, you could just take this, or you could also take this.
Or knight F7.
Yeah, and both of them give you the queen. And at any point, you can do something like that. You could check, in this kid's situation, if you want a queen, you just check him, and then he'll come back here, and then you take that. If you check him and he comes back here, then this is just simply mate. So yeah, if you don't need to get a checkmate, it's usually much harder to get a checkmate than to get a queen. But if you ever are in doubt, just get the queen. And then he'll usually resign anyways. This is the same thing as before. So you have 1, 2, 3 attackers. So let's just go through and see how this one works. Take. Okay. And if he pushes the pawn, since you're already defending both these squares, you can just go ahead and checkmate him. So this isn't really anything special. It's just, look, he has nothing to defend him other than this one pawn. There's nothing else that's special. So you can just checkmate him in a few. And then this is the last situation. And this is the hardest one. Right now, let's count number of attackers and defenders. So this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3, as always. And where we usually attack is this square, right? These 3 are the attackers, this is the defender. And there's actually a secret second defender here that ends up defending this square by moving somewhere. Can anyone spot it? Can anyone spot? So here's the plan. We take, he takes here, I check, he goes back, and then I bring my queen in, and I try and checkmate here. Is there anything to stop a checkmate on this square? Is there any piece that can stop a checkmate here?
C2.
Yeah, if the queen takes here, it will eventually block this. So the queen actually counts as a defender. So in this case, if you have 2 defenders and 3 attackers, the difference is not enough to get a checkmate because the difference between them is only 1 and you need it to be at least 2. So moving forward, what happens is he takes C2 and now you have no checkmate. And he's threatening a lot because once, he'll probably bring his queen here, offer trade, and then you just sacrifice the bishop for nothing. Even going to the computer, you're doing really bad right now. Black is winning by like a rook. So yeah, you got to count up. So it's usually easy to mate if you have enough attackers, but you have to do the counting well. You have to be proficient in the counting. So that's it. Okay, let's move on. So that's the entire Greek gift section. Just these 3 provide good attackers against this guy. Let's go on to bishop sacks. Okay. Before I move on, what do you think is, how do I praise this? Okay, which is the weakest pawn on the board for white? Let's say, what is white's weakest pawn?
F2.
Yeah, F2. And the reason is it only has 1 defender, and that defender is the king. So other pawns can only have 1 defender. For example, this pawn only has 1 defender because of, it's just a bishop, but it's at least it's a good bishop. And this one is defended by a rook. And some pawns are defended multiple times. Like this time, this guy's defended by 4 pieces. So this is a really strong pawn. F2 is only defended by 1 piece, and it's the king. And also, if a piece gets to F2, it's quickly a checkmate because the king can't run anywhere. So F2 is the worst here. F7 is the worst for black. It's the same thing as F2, but it's inverse. So if you can target F2, if F7, then you're golden. And this is usually why, like, for example, in a lot of games, you see people do stuff like this and immediately attack F7 with the queen. It's a bad move, technically, because you're bringing the queen out really early, but a lot of people fall for this because it's tricky like that, right? Like they go like this and let's attack the queen, but yeah, exactly. It's the scholar's mate. It's like it's the second fastest mate because it targets this. And actually, even the first fastest mate targets this, not necessarily the square, but this diagonal, right? Like you go here and here and here, and then it's checkmate. Nope, no. I pressed the wrong button. Checkmate, right? It's still the same diagonal. So usually you never move F2, and usually you protect it. You throw knights in front of it, you try king's bishoping it or something. And the good thing about castling is once you castle, F2 as a weakness is gone. Now it's probably H2, right? Because it's the corner of the king, and as we saw before. Or it could also be G2 if the knight's not there. If the knight's there, maybe it protects H2 and you're good. But now it's G2 is the worst. So going forward a bit, keeping in mind that F7 is the worst for him, we usually bring our bishops here, which attack F7. Usually if they have a pawn up, then that's fine. But if they forget, then it's nice. So here we have 1 attacker on F7. What other attackers do we have that we can bring in really quickly?
Knight G5.
Knight, is that it? Because
G5.
yeah, knight G5, that's 1 attacker. So we have this guy that can come in, this guy that can take out F7. But we need 1 more, right? Because he has 1 defender and we have 2 attackers. So the difference is still 1. Where's the third one? Do we have a third attacker that can come in really quickly?
The queen or the bishop?
Yeah, the queen. Yeah, maybe the bishop, but we want to attack this square. So not the bishop, but the queen. So yeah, So here, you're clean, you're fine to just go ahead and attack. You have a bishop, a knight, and a queen versus a pawn. So
What
just
if a
go ahead.
rook? Like you could castle and then get it out.
Yeah, like if you could remove this pawn right away, but by then he's probably defended this. I mean, like right now, immediately. So immediately you only have these three. So it would be unwise to make this move because now you just lost an attacker. Instead, what you should do is just go for the attack. So in sacks, we only consider the case where he takes. Because if he doesn't take, then great, you just got a free piece. And you can either move out or continue with the attack. But if he does take, then you got to justify why it's a good sack. So we bring in an attacker. Now we just got to do casework. So let's say he comes here. In this case, you don't actually even need to bring in a queen. I mean, bringing in a queen would be not bad. If you come here, then he can block it. But instead of bringing in a queen, what could you do that would immediately win you the game? Not checkmate, but it'd be pretty good.
Double check using the knight.
Double check.
Knight e6.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a double check, it'd be a fork. But yeah, you got it. E6 knight, and you get a queen. Great. So he won't come here because he'll just lose a queen. So he comes up here. Now you actually need to bring in some pieces. So go ahead and check, and that's mate. Where else could he go? He could come here. Now, this is probably the hardest for you guys to spot, and it's the only other place he can go. But you can actually do something really, really good here.
Can you just move the knight since the queen is trapped?
Yeah, there you go. The queen is trapped. So if you just bring the knight here, you win the queen. And technically it's a fork, but you don't ever care about the bishop. So great. No matter what, we win a queen. So this was a worthy sacrifice. Let's try the same thing and with a slightly different vibe. Great. We brought this guy in and now we're threatening here and this. But because the knight's here, we don't have another third attacker yet because we can't bring the queen in. Okay. So we decided to take, he took, and now we can take. Now, let me show you why we can take. So this was all calculated beforehand, but if we take and he takes, then the next move is obviously to check, and he goes there. What do you think we can do? So how do I give hints so that you guys get this? You can either attack the king or attack the queen. So there's no immediate way to check the king. So let's try attacking the queen. If we attack the queen like this, what will happen?
The queen will move out of the way.
Yeah, the queen will move out of the way. So let's say he goes there. And now that the knight's gone, oh, what's happening? Let's say the queen goes here. What will we do?
Knight C7.
Knight c7. And now you win something. Okay. So that's why the queen has to come here. If he goes here, you just take it. And this is the final situation you actually have to think about. And the recommended move is this. And why do you think this is the recommended move? Why can't he just take my knight?
Because when the black queen takes the knight, the pawn can threaten a fork.
Yeah. So here, if you go to the computer, because the king is just so out of place and you can just bring in pieces really quickly. Oh no, I think I made a mistake somewhere. This is the only variation where you actually win. Sorry, where he actually wins. So here you're not losing by a whole bishop. A bishop would be -3, but you're only losing by a pawn. And that's if he plays everything perfectly. So this is not a sound sacrifice because technically he can get out of it, but it would be very hard for him to even notice. On the other hand, if he makes even one mistake here, then he just loses the game. What would you do if he went back here? It's the same situation as before.
Knight to get the queen.
Yeah. If he comes here, you can also do that and just get the queen. Now, if he comes here, then you go here. And now the queen cannot come to this square, right? Because the king's there. So if he comes here, you take it. And if he comes here, as we discussed earlier, you take this. And then you just take the rook. Well, a little bit moves later, but yeah, you've won. So it's technically a bad sacrifice, but even if he does get out of it, you're only losing by a pawn. But if he doesn't get out of it, you're winning the entire game. So it's a little bit of a gamble. Let's continue on with the same type of thing. Okay. Game continues, and now you brought the bishop out, attacking here. Okay. Now, this is the same thing. You have two attackers. You have one here that can attack the king, and you have one here that can attack the king. Fortunately, the king is blocking both of them. And if you have a piece that's blocking two pieces, and both those pieces are attacked.
Bishop F7.
Yeah, then the piece is called overloaded. Right now, the king is overloaded because he's trying to protect two things, but both those things are attacked. So you have bishop f7, and the king has to take it, and you get a queen. Technically, you could also take queen and then get the pawn, but why get a pawn when you can have a queen? So it's the same thing. And that concludes what I will say about f7. So usually f7 is stopped really quickly because, like, if you play a game like this, then there's no way you can get a bishop to f7 anymore. So if you want to try stuff with f7, you're going to have to do e5 stuff and hope that he won't block it somehow. So bring out your bishop. And then if he does this, then you have to try different things. But if he never does that, then he's really opening himself up to bad news. Yeah. Another option for him would just be to move the knight, but it's tricky where to move that knight. Here is really bad because now you just have a knight on the side. And here is not really that interesting either because, well, no, because I don't know why it's recommending that, but you can just push the pawn here. And this is probably bad because if he moves this, you get a pawn. If he moves it up here, you get a pawn, and then he takes and you take and he takes. And now this is a bad position for his king. On the other hand, if he takes, you take back, and now that square is empty. So maybe you can bring in something. So overall, it's really bad when you have that exposed. And then I want to see how much time. We have 7 minutes. Okay. This is the last one I want to talk about. This one, okay, can someone find a checkmate in 1 here? For white?
Rook G8.
Yeah, rook G8 is mate. Using the same idea, you have a rook and a knight. Can you get it to the situation before where you have a knight and then a rook checkmates the king? So what first move would I have to make in order to get a knight here and then end up with a rook that checkmates the king? What?
Knight F6.
Okay, that's the first move. He moves up. So far, so good. Now I want my rook to come here and then checkmate him. But there's a problem. This guy will take my rook. I need him not to be here so that I can get a rook.
Maybe you can use your queen and go and take the
E7.
pawn.
Yeah, b7. And now if he takes, we go to the end and it's checkmate in one, and it's actually unstoppable, so he can't do anything after this. He can't even check you without just getting taken. So good job. It's an unstoppable checkmate. Keep in mind, if he doesn't take back, then you just got a free pawn, and now your queen's like about to do some damage. Maybe you can bring your rook in and start doing some more damage. Who knows? But yeah, this is the exception to that. So this looks the same as the previous situation, but check, move. Okay, what is different between this position and the previous position? Can anyone see any difference? There's one square that's different.
There's no
Five
pawn.
square has a pawn.
Yeah, which square, sorry?
E5.
E5, yeah. If the E5 pawn isn't there, then the queen can have these weird checks. So let me just show you what would happen if you take it now. So I'm coming here and he can check and I can go to this square. But now the queen can check here. Okay, so can you guys think of a plan for black that will stop this rook from going to the end? Maybe to trade rooks or something like that? We need this rook not to go to the end. We need to say that if that rook goes to the end, it gets taken somehow. So how do we stop that from getting taken? This is the last thing I'm going to cover today.
Checking?
Yeah, you can
Maybe
check.
six.
Yeah, you can check, but there's actually a way to do it without checking. At least not checking right away. So I'm saying this rook shouldn't be able to go to G8. If he goes
Rook
there,
B8.
okay, rook B8. And yeah, now he can't go here because he'll take. But what if I take the rook? Isn't it just a free rook?
Queen D6.
Yes, queen D6 is the fork I was telling you about. So you see, since the pawn is not here, it opens up this counter strategy. And now you just lost because he has a queen and you have a knight and the game is over. I think that's as much as I want to do today. I guess I can leave you with this. So once again, this is the same thing. You can just checkmate here. And then the next puzzle, I'll just leave this on for today. So think about how you can checkmate in this situation. It's made in 3. But yeah. If anyone has a question, please let me know. If not, then yeah, that's it. I'll stop class in like 2 minutes, just so you have a chance to look over this. Actually, just take a photo and then I'll just stop class now. So is everyone good? Yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah, that's the end of class. Thank you all for coming.